In this video, we're going to talk about how to determine the area and the perimeter of a figure. So let's start with a rectangle, just to keep things simple. And let's say that this rectangle has a length of 8 inches and a width of 5 inches. So what is the area and what is the perimeter of this rectangle? So let's start by calculating the area. The area is length times width. It's basically the two-dimensional space inside of this rectangle. And so using that formula, we have a length of 8 inches and a width of 5 inches. And so 8 times 5 is 40, and inches times inches is square inches. And so the answer is going to be 40 square inches. The unit of area is always unit squared. So you can have square feet, square centimeters, square yards, but it's always unit squared. And so that's how you can calculate the area of a rectangle. Now, what about the perimeter of the rectangle? How can we calculate that? In order to calculate the perimeter, you need to determine the total distance around the rectangle. Now, if this side is 8 inches, the side across it must be 8 inches. And if the right side is 5 inches, the left side must also be 5 inches. And so the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle, it's 2L plus 2W. It's twice the value of the length, which is going to be 2 times 8, plus 2 times the width. And so we're going to get 16 plus 10, and so this is going to be 26 inches. It's not 26 square inches. So if you add up 8 inches plus 5 inches, that's going to be 13, plus another 8 inches, that's 21 inches, plus 5 again, you're going to get a total of 26 inches. And so the perimeter is simply the distance around a figure, whereas the area is basically the two-dimensional space inside of a figure. So keep that in mind. Now for the next example, let's focus on the square. So let's say if we have a square with a side length of 7 inches. What is the area and the perimeter of the square? Now, you need to know that all 4 sides of a square are the same. And so it's 7 inches all around. Now the area of a square is similar to that of a rectangle. For a rectangle, it's length times width. For a square, all sides are the same. So let's call the side length S. So it would be S times S, or simply S squared. So in this case, the area of this square is going to be 7 times 7, or 7 squared, which is 49 square inches. And so that's the first part for this problem. Now for the second part, we need to calculate the perimeter. And intuitively, we could see that it's going to be the sum of all 4 sides. Don't forget that the perimeter is the distance around the figure. So it's going to be 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, which is 28 inches. Or you could say S plus S plus S plus S, which is 4S. So it's 4 times 7, which will give us 28. And so that's how you can find the perimeter of a square. Now let's work on some word problems. The diameter of a circle is 8 centimeters. What is the area and perimeter of the circle? So let's draw a picture. And so this is the diameter. It's 8 centimeters. How can we determine the area and the perimeter? The first thing I would recommend doing is finding the radius. The radius is 1/2 of the diameter. So this is the radius. It's the distance between the center of the circle and any point on the circle. So half of 8 is 4. Therefore, the radius is 4. Now, to calculate the area of the circle, we could use this formula. Area is pi r squared. So it's going to be pi times 4 squared, which is going to be 16 pi square centimeters. And so this is the area of the circle. Now, if you want to get the decimal value of that, I'm going to use the exact value for pi, 3.141592654 times 16. And so you should get 50.265 square centimeters for the area of the circle. Now, what about the perimeter of the circle? So how can we determine the distance around the circle? And there's a formula for that. It's basically the circumference, which is 2 pi r. So it's going to be 2 pi times 4 centimeters. And so that comes out to be 8 pi centimeters. Which, if we convert that to a decimal number, that's going to be 25.133 centimeters. And so that's how you could find the area and the perimeter of the circle. The perimeter of the circle is simply called the circumference of the circle. Now, here is another problem. The perimeter of a square is 60 centimeters. What is the area of the square? So how can we find the area if we're given the perimeter? So first square, remember that the perimeter is 4 times the side length. So if the perimeter is 60, we could easily solve for the side length. We just got to divide both sides by 4. And so 60 divided by 4 is 15. So therefore, the side length of the square is 15 centimeters all around. So now that we have the side length, we can calculate the area. So the area of this square is going to be s squared, or basically 15 times 15, which is 15 squared. And so that comes out to be 225 square centimeters. And so that's it for this problem. That's the area of this particular square. Now let's try this problem. The length of the diagonal in a square is 12 feet. What is the area and perimeter of the square? So if we're given the length of the diagonal, let's call it L. How can we find the side length S? Notice that this forms a right triangle. And so we could use the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the hypotenuse. A and b, they're both equal to s. So we have s squared plus s squared is equal to L squared. And so 1s squared plus 1s squared is 2s squared. Now, if we take the square root of both sides, on the left we have the square root of 2 times the square root of s squared, and on the right, the square root of L squared is just L. And the square root of s squared, we could just make that s. Then we could divide by the square root of 2. So the side length is basically the length of the diagonal divided by the square root of 2 when dealing with a square. Now the area of a square is s squared. And so what we could do is replace s with this expression. So the area is going to be L over the square root of 2 times, to the second power. And so here we have L squared, and then the square root of 2 squared. The square and the square root will cancel, and so you're just going to get a 2 on the bottom. Therefore, the area of a square given the length of the diagonal is 1/2 L squared. And so let's use that formula to get the area of this square. So the length of the diagonal is 12, and 12 squared is 144. Half of 144, half of 14 is 7, and then half of the other 4 is 2, so Half of 144 is 72. So it's going to be 72 square feet. And that's the area of this particular square. Now, let's calculate the perimeter of the square. So the perimeter of the square, we know it's 4s. And in this problem, s is L over the square root of 2. So now I'm going to rationalize this expression. I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 2. So on top I have 4L times the square root of 2, and on the bottom the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, that's the square root of 4, which is 2. And now 4 divided by 2 is 2. So you could simplify these, replace that with a 2. So in terms of the length of the diagonal, the perimeter of the square is going to be 2L, or rather 2 square root 2 times L. So in this case, it's going to be 2 square root 2 times 12, or basically 24 square root 2. And the unit for this is feet. So that's the perimeter of this particular square. So this problem is going to be the last problem for this video. So it goes like this. The length of a rectangle is 3 more than twice its width. If the area of the rectangle is 90 square centimeters, what is the perimeter of the rectangle? So let's draw a picture. And so this is the length and this is the width. Now, what we need to do is we need to write some equations. We're told that the length of the rectangle is 3 more than twice its width. How can we convert that sentence into an equation? So the length is means equal, 3 more, so 3 plus twice the width, 2w. Now, we're also told that the area is 90 square centimeters. And we know that the area is length times width. So 90 is L times W. So we have 2 equations and 2 variables. So let's solve by substitution. So let's replace L with 3 plus 2W. So this is going to be 90 is equal to 3 plus 2W times W. So now we have an equation with only one variable, so we can solve it. But how should we go about solving it? Well, the first thing we should do is distribute W to 3 plus 2W. And so it's going to be 90 is equal to 3 times W, which is 3W, and then 2W times W, that's 2W squared. And so I'm going to take this 90 and move it to that side. And I'm going to rewrite it, putting it in standard order. So it's 2W squared plus 3W. And then when you take the 90, which is positive on the left side, and move it to the right side, it's going to switch from positive to negative. Now, in order to solve for W, we either need to factor or use the quadratic formula. Because right now, this is a quadratic equation. Let's see if we can factor. So first, we need to multiply the leading coefficient by the constant term. 2 times negative 90 is negative 180. And now we need to find 2 numbers that multiply to negative 180 but add to 3. So we could try negative 18. Negative 180 divided by negative 18 is 10. But these 2 numbers, they don't differ by 3. So we could try, let's say, 6 goes into 18. Negative 180 divided by 6, or negative 6, that's 30. But they don't differ by 3. We could try negative 12. Negative 180 divided by negative 12, that's 15. So these 2, they differ by 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the middle term 3W with negative 12W plus 15W. Because as you can see, these 2 numbers, they add up to 3W. And now let's factor by grouping. So in the first two terms, let's take out the GCF, the greatest common factor, which is 2w. And so now we have 2w squared divided by 2w, which is w, and then negative 12w divided by 2w, that's going to be negative 6. In the last two terms, let's factor out the greatest common factor, which is going to be 15. And so 15w divided by 15, that's going to be just w. Negative 90 divided by 15, that's negative 6. And so at this point, you could see we have a common factor. And so if we take out w minus 6, we will be left over with 2w plus 15. And so at this point, we can now calculate the value of w. And so we need to set each factor equal to 0. So w minus 6 equal to 0, and 2w plus 15 is equal to 0. Here we need to add 6 to both sides. So we get this answer, w is equal to 6. And for the other one, first we need to subtract both sides by 15. So 2w is equal to negative 15, and then we could divide by 2. So we get a negative answer for w, which we're not going to use. Real-life objects tend to have positive side lengths. So now that we have w, we can calculate L. Recall that the area is length times w, and the area is 90. The length is, we don't know, but the width is 6. So dividing both sides by 6, 90 divided by 6 is 15. So that gives us the length of the rectangle. So now that we have the length and the width of the rectangle, we can now calculate the perimeter using this formula. It's going to be 2L plus 2W. So it's 2 times 15 plus 2 times 6. And so that's going to be 30 plus 12. And so we're going to get 42. And since the area was in square centimeters, the perimeter is just going to be centimeters. And so that's going to be the final answer of this problem. So that is the perimeter of this rectangle. Thanks for watching.